you're not getting orders on Amazon KDP, watch this video because I'm going to help you boost your orders today. So let me start off by showing you some examples. And so every book will have a bestseller rank. And basically the lower the number, i.e. the closer it is to number 1, the more copies it's selling. So basically if you're number 1, you're the best selling book across all of Amazon. Whereas if you're number 10 million, you're probably not really selling many copies at all. So here's an example of the bestseller rank graph of one of the books that I launched back in August. And as you can see from there, when it was first launched, I got an initial sale or two. And then ever since that, it's just been a downhill journey because there's not been any additional sales along the way. And so if your book is not selling, this is the type of bestseller rank graph that you will be seeing in your Amazon author account. And this is incredibly common for a lot of Amazon KDP publishers. But the purpose of this video is to try and help you go from this to this. And so this is an example of one of my best selling books. And as you can see there in the bestseller rank, it had a few initial sales to bump it up. It fell back down again a little bit, but then because it started ranking for certain keywords, the bestseller rank has stayed nice and low. And so this was published last year and it continues to get organic sales every single month. Basically how it works is every time you get a sale, the line is going to get a bit higher. And then when you don't get a sale, it's going to go lower. So as you can see, even on this graph, if it goes a few days without a sale, the graph will drop down. But then when it gets an order, it will jump back up again. So that's what you want with your books. You want ongoing sales. And so if you want to be successful over the long term with Amazon KDP, these are the types of books that are going to help you to get there. They're books that are going to drive long-term orders. And then if you can just keep replicating the success of books like this, you're going to increase your profits every month up into a point where you're making hopefully a full-time income through Amazon KDP. So tell me if this sounds familiar, right? You've made a book, you're really excited about it, you're really proud about it. You can't wait to log into the Amazon dashboard and see how many orders you've got. And then you've got none, or 1 or 2. And that's what that first book that I showed you an example of was. That was a complete flop. And I would imagine that 90%, if not more, of books on Amazon KDP look like that. Whereas from my experience, the one that was successful, that's probably 1 in 100. Because it was a book that was released to market, it was a very high quality book, and it was received well by consumers. Now to begin with, in order to get those increased sales and get a better bestseller rank, my recommendation would be to go through this checklist and make sure you're ready to click that publish button. So first on the checklist, the first thing that you should be doing is identifying the niche that you want to be publishing in and making sure it's a good niche. By this, I mean it generally needs to have 2 different elements to it. First of all, it needs to have traffic, because if you're publishing in a niche that doesn't have traffic, you're not going to get enough people there to buy your book. But on the other side, it can't be too competitive. So the ideal niche has traffic, but it's not overly competitive. And then once you found your niche, what I would do is go through your competitors, research what they're doing, take a look at their covers, take a look at what they're offering inside, the page lengths, the price points, all of that kind of stuff. And then what you need to be doing is creating something better or different. Now, it's not always possible to do something better. If there's colouring books out there with, say, 100 designs, you're not necessarily going to be able to better that. But then you can differentiate it. So say if you're making a cat colouring book, there might already be tons of cat colouring books out there that are good quality. But if you can think of a way to differentiate and create something that's fun and wacky and a bit different and it will stand out, that's how you can get sales. The third thing you need to be doing is making sure your book is high quality. So I suffered from this when I first started getting going, and I would spend money to launch my books. They'd start selling, but because they weren't high enough quality, the reviews wouldn't be 5 stars, and over time, they just wouldn't sell. And what you want to do on Amazon KDP is approach it with a medium to long-term view. You want to be ranking your books for keywords, and you want to get long-term sales. And the way you're going to do that is by getting positive reviews because your book is high quality. So one thing I would highly recommend not doing is pumping out a ton of books that are low quality. In 2024 and 2025, you just won't make any money doing that on Amazon KDP. Next is focusing on the look inside section. And so if you come onto one of my books on Amazon, I'll show you what I mean. So on Amazon, when you're on a book, there's this read sample button. And then what consumers would tend to do is click that if they're interested in finding out more about the book. So you'd click the look inside, you get a bigger version of the front cover, you get to see the first page, And then generally what you get to see is a couple of examples of additional pages inside. And from my experience, that tends to be the length. Some books will have more pages on that look inside feature. But what I would say is those first 2 or 3 pages, make sure that you've got a nice intro page, make sure it feels really premium. And if you're doing something like a colouring book, make sure some of your best colouring pages are up front. And then the 5th thing on my checklist is to make sure you've got a great front cover. A lot of my books that have been failures, the front cover just didn't stand out enough. And that's a big learning that I've taken over the past year. You need to create a very, very high quality cover, and it also needs to stand out. So the one way that I do this is I do this front cover test. So let's say we're making an owl colouring book. All I do is go onto Amazon.com and search for owl colouring books and then see what the competition looks like. So these were the first 10 results that popped up. So what I would do is design up a cover, and then I'll drop it in, say where this pink box is, for example, and see if it stands out against the other covers. This is a great little test that you can do because 1, it allows you to see whether the cover is good enough on thumbnail view, which is really important. But then you can also see if it's going to stand out against your competitors. Chances are, if it just fits in, you're not going to get many sales. So you need to stand out, whether it's bolder, brighter, whether the text is more interesting, or maybe you have a really beautiful hero image on there. Whatever you think is a good way to stand out and make something really premium and beautiful, that would be my suggestion for your front cover. So let's say that you've got all of those 5 things on the checklist down. You've got your book, you've got your front cover, it's all ready to go. Now, unfortunately on Amazon KDP, if you just publish your book and don't do anything, you're unlikely to get any sales. And it doesn't matter how great your book is, if people aren't finding it, if they're not finding it through search, you're generally not going to make any sales. And so that's why I always launch my book with Amazon ads. So I'm just going to take you through how I launched my book using keyword ads. So the first thing you need to do is come on over to your Amazon ads dashboard. That's generally found at advertising.amazon.com.co.uk. Depends where you want to run ads. But in this version, I'm on the .com marketplace. And then all you do is click this create campaign button. So you can either sponsor a product or your brand as a whole. Generally, I like to do sponsored products. And then you can enter all of your information here. So a custom text ad allows you to do exactly that, add a bit of custom text underneath. But I'm going to do a standard ad, give it a name. We're going to find our book that we want to advertise and click add. We're going to go down and do manual targeting, and then we're going to do keyword targeting. So now we need to find our keywords. So I've got a few other videos out there where you can go through to see how I do this. Generally, one of the best and easiest ways to do this is just going on over to Amazon and using the search bar. So we're going to run an ad for this food colouring book. And so if we come onto the search bar and start looking for food colouring book, you can see the Amazon suggestions. So first things first, you've got food colouring books for adults, colouring books, food and drink, food and snacks colouring book, 90s food, snacks and drinks colouring book. And so these recommended searches are a great place to start searching for your keywords. And the reason we want to do this is, say if we just did a food colouring book, we've got over 50,000 results to compete with. Whereas if we did a food, drink and sweets colouring books for adults, we've got over 2,000 results to compete with. So basically what we're doing there is we're niching down, we're finding that right niche, but you can still target all of these searches in your keyword ad. So what I would do is find all of these keywords and then enter them in our list. So I've got a few keywords here that I want to be trying to rank for. And then what we do here is we will enter a custom bid. So one of the reasons I do this is the suggested bid might be a bit high and I like to control what I'm spending. So let's say I'm willing to spend 60 cents per click on these. I will add all of those keywords. You've got your different match types here on the left hand side. I've just left them on to go nice and broad with these search terms. As you can see here, the suggested bids are around 40 to 70 cents. So we're probably bidding around the right sort of amount. Scrolling down, you can enter negative targeting if you want to, and then you need to set your bidding strategy. So I like to set down only because that means the max I'm going to spend is that 60 cents. But you can also do up and down or fixed bids. You can adjust your bids. So let's say if I put 10% in the top of search, that means I'll be willing to bid an extra 10% to get my book on the top of search. So that can be quite powerful. So I don't mind spending a bit more there. Then you need to give your campaign a name, put a start and end date, and set a daily budget. When you're happy, all you need to do is click Launch Campaign. So that's what I tend to do with all of my books when I launch them. In that first sort of 4 to 6 weeks, that tends to be the sweet spot of when you should be advertising your books in order to try and get them to rank for certain search terms. So what I found, depending on how competitive the niche is, if you can get some initial sales using these keyword ads, it's likely that your book, if it's a good quality book that's converting well in terms of sales, you might then start to rank for those keywords organically as well as through your ads. Now, as mentioned, it depends how competitive the niches are. In some niches or for some types of books, you might only need to bid 20 cents to get clicks, whereas in others, you might need to bid $2. It generally depends how competitive it is. So if you can find a good niche where your ads are working well, my advice would be keep on going in that area. But what I tend to do is I will monitor my keyword ad, and if it's selling well at not too high in ACOS, I'll keep those ads going. Whereas either it's selling but at a very, very high ACOS or it's not selling at all, after a couple of weeks, it might be best to write that ad off and then move on to the next book. What I've tended to find is you probably know in the first 2 weeks of running your ads whether the book's going to be a success or not. I normally hold on to my ads maybe a little bit too long. Maybe I'll run them for a couple of months just to make sure. But generally within the first 2 weeks or so, if you're not really getting any sales or the ACOS is far too high, it generally means that the book's not quite right or the niche is maybe too competitive. So what I would say is take those learnings and then try and adapt them for your next book. But if you follow my checklist, you create a great book with a great cover in the right niche, there's every chance of succeeding on Amazon KDP. If you want to find out more about Amazon ads, click the link in the description below, or you can check out my Amazon ads playlist here on YouTube. I hope the video is useful. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.